إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله تعالى وإن خير الهدي هدي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وإن كل محدثة بدعة وإن كل بدعة ضلالة وإن كل ضلالة في النار أعاذنا الله منها وإياكم. Brothers and sisters in Islam, sons and daughters, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we praise Him for all the bounties that He bestowed upon us. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us opportunities after opportunities to stand up and pray, to be able to come for the Friday prayer, to be able to meet for Friday prayer is a great blessing that we praise Him for. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being healthy and being able to live our lives as Muslims. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the opportunity to ask forgiveness and to look deep on a daily basis through our actions and being able to sort them out and ask forgiveness for things that we don't find fit to what He ordered us to do. Today I would like to spend a little bit time with some wisdoms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned some of those wisdoms by bringing in the picture Luqman, known as Luqman al-Hakim. And scholars argued about the identity of Luqman. There are no proofs that he was a prophet nor a messenger. As a matter of fact, there are enough indications that he was either from Epithenia or southern Sudan nowadays. He was a slave. He may not have lots of luxury in his life. Yet that did not prevent him from being a recipient of the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not only that, but to be recognized by the people that he lived with. And you'll see the wisdoms of Luqman published in different ways and forms. But I would go to the surah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala named after him in the Quran. And in the beginning of the wisdoms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relate to us, some other wisdoms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala injected in there. After a few verses of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنِ اشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ. We indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking, have bestowed upon Luqman the wisdom to thank Allah. And if you take the word to thank Allah away, the meaning is still complete. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ. Allah saying, we have bestowed upon Luqman the wisdom. There is no need to explain more. And if you go into explanation, that additional statement could either mean the peak, the most important, what you should pay attention to, or explain the total wisdom that He subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon Luqman. So the first thing to pay attention to is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse made it clear that wisdom is bestowed upon people. And that's why scholars said, whenever you hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran say or declare that He gave or bestowed something upon someone, say, oh Allah, I need the same. So when you hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ, a wise believer will say, اللهم آتِنِي الْحِكْمَةِ. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bestow upon us the wisdom. The second part is this wisdom was declared with the, or in Arabic, alif lam, mu'arrafa. Again, as if it was the total or the most important, or what we should concentrate upon. And what came after it explained it. Anishkur lillah. As if the mission that every single individual listening to this verse, to attain that hikmah, to earn that hikmah, to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow upon you that hikmah, is to be a person of shukr, a thankful person. And in many verses Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions ash-shakirin. And when the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was asked, "O Messenger, you've been told where your destiny is gonna be. You've been forgiven. Allah gave you this duty. Why do you keep praying? Why do you keep doing this? Over and extra and beyond." And his answer sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was what? "Ala uhibbu an akuna abdan shakura." Shouldn't I love and admire to be a thankful worshipper and slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And what comes after that verse explains little more. And the grammar of this verse always gets me to read more on the structure of that phrase that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put there. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, Anishkur lillah, وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. Whoever is thanking, وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the word object. He didn't say وَمَنْ يَشْكُرِ اللَّهِ. وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ, whoever is committed to thanks, put himself on a program of being thankful, he's doing it for himself. وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ. So you look at a brother of yours or look in the mirror. Do you see the face of a shakir? Do you see the face of a person who's thankful? Thankful for how he looks or she looks. And I don't want to get our sister angry, but when we talk about makeup, for example, and I had that discussion with my stepdaughter a few days ago, 6 years old, and she's grabbing those makeup toys that they put about 2 feet up in the store. Why do you want them? Because I want to look better. I want to look more beautiful. So my next question, so you're not beautiful already? Oh no, I am. But everyone does that. So the question is, as adults and as toddlers, programming the brain to be satisfied, happy, content, is precursor to thinking. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us a dua. When you look in the mirror, you say, "Oh Allah, improve upon my ethics. Allahumma hassin khuluqi." And that's the Messenger. Improve on my character the same way you improve the way I look. And don't tell me the Messenger is the most beautiful person on earth. We know that. But he did it so that we learn. So you look in the mirror, whether you're white or black, tall or short, with hair or without, that image that you see in the mirror, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted us. So before we get into a thankful attitude, we need to have a full acceptance of what Allah bestowed upon us so that we could take all the potentials out of it and work on it. We take what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us and we maximize the potential. A person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested to be blind, whether from birth or later on in life, wouldn't be able to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until and unless he or she recognizes what goods come out of this preventive ni'mah that he or she did not get. Otherwise, that person will be continuously complaining. I cannot do this because I have this disability. I cannot do that because I have this disability. And I cannot do this and I cannot do that. So in the wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared, and up till now we didn't hear Luqman, and I don't think we'll get to him. I'm still in the introduction that Allah put in there. وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the present continuous tense with the thanking. None of us should be saying, I was good or positive enough and I'm not going to do it anymore. Or I prayed for 10 years or 20 years. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made some exceptions. Alhamdulillah, we all got to fast Ramadan. Among those that are forgiven and allowed not to, certain categories that Allah declared. People who are traveling, people who get sick, and people who got so old they cannot even continue. Yet you see in our community many of the elderlies, they are begged by their kids to stop. Don't fast. But they got into this thankful mode. They know that not fasting is allowed for them because they are so old. And if you've seen a comparison between someone who runs toward the doctor and asks for a permission not to fast, and between someone who runs to his doctor and say, can you allow me to fast? What a big difference. This person is waiting for an opportunity to jump off the boat. And this person is looking, why am I losing this opportunity to get closer to Allah? That's a thankful person right there. So the present continuous tense وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ in this verse is a wisdom by itself. We don't have to pray Taraweeh around the year. In fact, even in Ramadan, it's not obligatory, but we did it. So if you apply that to yourself, Ramadan has been now a few months, maybe in a month, inshallah, or less, we will be celebrating Eid al-Adha. We should ask ourselves, am I a good shakir, thankful to Allah that He allowed me the opportunity to fast Ramadan and stand up in the middle of the night and pray Taraweeh and do Tahajjud, did this continue? If not, we have time to work it out. If yes, be thankful that He allowed us. So when we look at this thankful program that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to hang on to, it's an opportunity to ask ourselves that questions, just like a test or a quiz that a teacher will do at the end of a chapter. It's not to torture the students, or so I hope. It's just to get them to recognize where they are. And I continuously tell our students and our teachers here at the academy that the teacher is not the one who gives you the grades. You earn it, they will record it for you. For many reasons, among which, because that's how we want them to live in life. Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I'm gonna give you rewards and hasanat, but He gave us the rubric. You do this, you get this. You know what? Allah is even more generous, and I'm gonna multiply it by 10 times. You do this, you get that. Allah is more generous, and He's gonna multiply it by 700 times. But the rubric is there. You know, when you do this, you get that. And Allah will put the extra multiplying factor there. So we go back and ask ourselves, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ. What came next? وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. He opposed subhanahu wa ta'ala shukr to kufr. He didn't say وَمَنْ لَمْ يَشْكُرْ. These are too extreme. A person who goes around his day and does not find himself in need to go down in sujood and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is slipping to the other end of the spectrum where the non-believer is. And he has that night to wake himself up, come back the next morning, bring himself back to Iman. That's how serious it is. Because if I'm not thankful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opposed it. He said, وَمَنْ كَفَرَ. Because if any person cannot put himself in a thankful position, he's among those who are denying the faith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in there, in the statement, a past tense. He did not say, وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ. We have to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day in and day out. And that's what it's a present continuous, فعلا مضارعا. But when it comes to kufr wal-iyadu billah, it's once, unless a person repents. Kufr is once. Forgiveness is always there. So that doesn't mean that we panic continuously. Am I a kafir or am I a Muslim? Am I a believer or am I this? I look at my actions. I say, well, this word that I said at this moment does not qualify me to be there. And it could be anything, by the way. Because scholars spoke about belief as being different levels. And some spoke about kufrun duna kufr. There is certain kufr that is higher than others. Some examples. Depending on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I get to a point where I panic from a hurricane or a tornado and I don't depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and recognize that He subhanahu wa ta'ala has dictated and wrote my fate, could bring me closer to the kufr end. And not taking a shelter and listening to the directions from those who know what should be done could put me on the other end. Careless could put me on the other end where I'm endangering my life. And a believer is a person who had that wisdom to put himself in the right category. وَمَنْ يَشْكُرْ فَإِنَّمَا يَشْكُرُ لِنَفْسِهِ وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. If we have the opportunity to write those few words and check ourselves against them every day, every morning and every evening, I bet you that we will be changing a lot in our own life. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فيا فوز المستغفرين أستغفر الله. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. So as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this statement of what is wisdom and what is thanks and how it is opposed to kufr, again as a wide spectrum that we need to put ourselves on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala moves to the next step even before Luqman speaks. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as I like to call it, put the best, most beautiful social equation in life. Now we know the relationship between the worshipper and God. A relationship of thanks and acceptance versus denial and rejection. What do we do with the people around us? How is our relationship with the people around us? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes the most important in our life. Moms and dads. وَلَقَدْ وَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ. We have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, we have entrusted every human being to take care of his own mom and dad. And then speaks further, حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ وَفِصَالُهُ فِي عَامَيْنِ. His mother carried her in her womb, pain upon pain, and weaned him off in 2 years. أَنِشْكُرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيْكَ إِلَيَّ الْمَصِيرِ. Here comes the conclusion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the word thank to him and to the parents in the same statement, which was opposed to kufr just a verse ago, to make us understand that that program of thanking is so wide open that at the top of it is worship, and then comes down to relationship with the people around you, and the best who deserve it is mom and dad. Anishkur li wali walidayk. Thank me and thank your parents. You thank Allah in one way, you thank your parents in a different way. And goes further. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. If your own parents struggled, committed jihad against you to turn away from worshipping the Almighty, you don't leave them alone. That social bond that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created should not be broken. فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. You don't obey them in that. وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Be the best friend there could be in life for them. If we take that equation and you apply it from your mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, uncle, nephew, niece, neighbors, your relationship with everyone around you is clear, and it's part of a thankful program that identifies very clearly who you are, whom you're worried about, and how can you get people to save themselves and become more thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As one scholar called it once, that we are appointed on earth as Allah appointed us Khalifa for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. He did not put us on earth as judges, but as caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why He named the Prophet messenger. Because the messenger has a message, and the value of that individual is in the message and who originated the message. وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ. Muhammad is nothing more, nothing less than a messenger. Peace be upon him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The message came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The messenger is going to deliver it. Believers and those who are thankful should either decide to be a messenger for the messenger or sit on the sideline. And that's how we understand all the encouragements in the Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the messenger, Ya ayyuhal muddathir, qum fa'andir. Don't sit in the corner. It's okay to pray at night. It's needed. It's required. But that's not the end. Then you stand up the next day and call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of this khutbah to reward everyone who helped to make this community a reality. Whether it's the hall as a multi-purpose, the masjid coming up inshallah very soon, so that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we'll be able to pray in that structure as a beacon of belief in the city of Cooper City. Those who worked hard to put the academy together. This week we're wrapping up the 27th year. I've been here for 6 years. They passed just like this. But imagine how many young individuals got the opportunity to read Quran, to get closer to Allah, to make mistakes and get corrected by fellow educators and believers, and get protected in an environment where it's very hard to protect ourselves, let alone our own children. If you look at this community, you should be proud that you're a member of it, because this is actually a thankful program to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any individual could have a corner in his own home, whether that home is $100,000 worth or $1 million worth. You could have your corner and pray. But being in a community where we come together, be patient with each other, raise the funds together, come to Ramadan together, eat together, pray on those who are deceased together, and cry together, is part of thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't let shaitan come through to you or to your children. And the reason I'm saying this is that we have the duty to make sure that our kids are attached to the masajid. And if for one reason or another cannot bring them to the Islamic school, at least let's have them come to the masjid. And as a community, X or Y or Z may not be here in 10 or 20 years, but the community around us, including the angels who are writing, will say there were some people here. Just like we spoke about Luqman with his wisdom. We don't know much about his life. But yet, even though he, Luqman, was a slave, he was beneficial, received the wisdom, and we recognize his name now. And ask yourself, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us another 50 years to live, how would people describe this community? How do people describe the effect of this community on Muslims? How would people describe the effect of this community on non-Muslims? And then you get the answer that will guide you what kind of a thankful program we need to put ourselves in. I'm asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in supplication, say Ameen. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت إنك تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليك إنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت لا ملجأ ولا منجى منك إلا إليك وقوموا إلى صلاتكم يغفر لكم ذنوبكم.